Streep, a name that evokes perfection and acclaim, and stands as a living symbol of cinematic excellence. The world calls her the Queen of Acting, a legend irreplaceable in the history of Hollywood. But what few genuinely know is that behind the glittering spotlight lies a silence she has rarely spoken of. For over 5 decades at the pinnacle of fame, Meryl Streep has quietly endured heartbreaks, silent pressures, and profound personal losses that words can barely capture. And she has survived them in a way only valid artists do, by channeling her deepest wounds into every role, touching audiences in ways they couldn't explain, only feel. What makes a woman so talented and seasoned to choose silence amid countless storms? Why do her performances strike at the very core of the human heart? And what is the true tragedy behind her story? The kind hidden beneath the golden statues and applause. Today, we invite you to step into the shadows the spotlight can't reach. A journey where a great artist didn't just portray characters, but left behind pieces of her soul in every silent glance. Meryl Streep's teenage years were far from the dazzling glow of her future fame. Her childhood was a quiet journey of overcoming the feeling of being left behind, a time when she truly believed the world wasn't meant for someone like her. Born on June 22, 1949, in Summit, New Jersey, Meryl grew up in an intellectual family with her parents and 2 younger brothers, Dana and Harry. If her parents represented 2 opposite worlds, then her brothers were like contrasting puzzle pieces that somehow fit together. Dana was smart, sociable, and always the center of family conversations. Harry was energetic and constantly immersed in his games and hobbies. And Meryl? She was the silent pause in the symphony of a lively household. Her father, Harry William Streep, Jr., was a pharmaceutical executive, a disciplined man who believed in rules, order, and setting sky-high standards. Her mother, Meryl Wilkinson Streep, was a commercial art editor and a passionate painter with a free-spirited, intuitive soul. But between these extremes, Meryl didn't find balance, only a nameless void where she felt alone, even in her own home. That little girl didn't look like anyone else. Wild curly hair, thick glasses, and a presence she herself once described as invisible in a crowd. Whether in class, on the playground, or at home, Meryl never truly felt she belonged. During family dinners, while Dana and Harry animatedly shared their day, Meryl would quietly lower her head, pretending to eat, while secretly observing and listening. Her mother would often say, "You have something truly special, Meryl." But those heartfelt words, however sincere, could never fully fill the quiet sadness that lingered in her heart. She learned to stay silent, to observe, and to bury her emotions deep inside, as if life was too noisy to hear a heart that longed to be understood. At age 12, Meryl began taking opera lessons encouraged by her mother. The mother believed that singing could boost her daughter's confidence and help her find her voice in a world that often felt too big. And indeed, not long after, Meryl discovered a powerful voice hidden within. Those early vocal exercises opened a new door, a place where she could escape her timid self. But gradually, she realized that opera, though elegant and structured, wasn't where her heart truly belonged. She longed for a freer space, where emotions weren't confined to perfect notes, where a soul could breathe through pain and longing. And then she found the theater, not as a choice, but as a homecoming. On stage, Meryl felt alive. She could transform, break down, or remain silent, all in her own way. The stage wasn't just a place to perform. It was a sanctuary, where she was no longer on the sidelines, but at the heart of the story. After high school, Meryl pursued her passion at Vassar College, where she not only honed her acting skills, but for the first time felt a true creative kinship. Those years were rare moments when she didn't feel lost, when classmates and teachers finally seemed to truly see her. And then, With her growing desire to live fully through art, she applied to the Yale School of Drama, one of the most prestigious performing arts institutions in the country. But Yale was far from easy. To afford tuition, she performed in more than 10 plays a year, to the point of exhaustion, even being diagnosed with a stress-induced stomach ulcer. At times, she considered quitting, switching to law, just to escape the crushing pressure. But amidst the late-night rehearsals and the lonely moments backstage after distant applause, she realized she couldn't walk away, because the stage, though unforgiving, was the only place she felt truly alive, truly heard, and truly herself. From a little girl who once thought she was invisible, Meryl Streep quietly rose through layers of emotion to step into the world of art, with a heart that had known pain but never stopped feeling. And it was that very heart that would become the most precious, living material for every iconic role she would go on to portray. Glamour is the greatest joy in life, don't you find? Meryl Streep's career was never a dazzling path paved with roses, but rather a journey through the deepest layers of tragedy, both in the characters she portrayed and in her own complex inner world. After graduating from the Yale School of Drama, Meryl Streep began her professional acting career in 1975 on small theater stages in New York, where she embodied classical characters under dim lights with quiet intensity. These roles did not bring her fame at the time, but they helped her develop emotional depth and a nuanced acting style that would become her lifelong artistic signature. In 1977, Meryl Streep made her big screen debut in Julia, a small role, yet one that opened doors as directors began to take notice of her talent. A true turning point came in 1978 with The Deer Hunter, where she portrayed a woman enduring the scars of war and loss. This role earned her a first Oscar nomination, but behind the screen, it was deeply personal as her real-life partner, actor John Cazale, was nearing the final days of his life during filming. Just a year later, Streep won her first Academy Award with Kramer vs. Kramer, portraying a mother torn between rediscovering herself and fighting for custody of her child. The role marked a glorious early triumph as she was honored at the 1980 Oscars, a moment that confirmed her ability to deliver extraordinary emotional range with quiet strength and authenticity. In 1982, her performance as Sophie in Sophie's Choice elevated her to the peak of cinematic artistry. Sophie, a woman haunted by unspeakable memories, challenged her both linguistically and emotionally. The unforgettable scene in which Sophie must choose between her two children has become one of the most harrowing moments in film history. This role earned Streep her second Oscar for Best Actress, establishing her as a timeless symbol of transformative acting. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, she continued to solidify her status with socially conscious and emotionally intense performances. In Silkwood, she portrayed a nuclear plant worker fighting injustice. With Out of Africa, she embodied the quiet resilience of a woman in a foreign land. And in A Cry in the Dark, she played a grieving mother, wrongly judged by the world, especially in 1995's The Bridges of Madison County. She delivered a delicate yet powerful portrait of a wife who, for the first time, experiences true love amidst a life of quiet sacrifice. Each of these roles reflected her ability to channel unspoken pain, longing, and moral complexity. Mirroring parts of her own journey, entering the 2000s, Meryl Streep continued to reinvent herself with remarkable versatility. In The Hours, she portrayed a woman silently trapped in a seemingly peaceful life. During 2006, she captivated a new generation with her role as Miranda Priestley in The Devil Wears Prada, a cold, commanding editor hiding layers of emotional solitude. This role earned her yet another Oscar nomination and became a modern cinematic icon, where tragedy lies not in tears, but in silence behind power. In 2008, she conquered two contrasting extremes, the vibrant, carefree mother in Mamma Mia, and the stern, questioning nun in Doubt, which brought her yet another Academy Award nomination for Best Actress. In 2009, Meryl Streep shone once again in Julie and Julia, portraying culinary legend Julia Child, a role filled with optimism, warmth, and creative joy. This performance not only touched millions of hearts, but also earned her another Oscar nomination, adding to a legacy that had already spanned more than 3 decades. In 2011, she transformed into British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher in The Iron Lady, a performance that won her a 3rd Oscar nearly 30 years after her previous win. It was not only a personal milestone, but a powerful declaration that even in the later stages of her career, Streep could still reach astonishing emotional heights and technical mastery. In 2013, she took on the role of a controlling, deeply wounded mother in August, Osage County, another emotionally intense and complex character. She continued her prolific career with Into the Woods, 2014, Florence Foster Jenkins, 2016, The Post, 2017, Big Little Lies, 2019, Let Them All Talk, 2020, and Don't Look Up, 2021. Such performance reflected her endurance, precision, and unshakable dedication to her craft. In The Post, she played a female editor standing up to political power, a quiet yet commanding portrayal that earned her another Oscar nomination, reaffirming that even in her 70s, Meryl Streep remained the top choice for strong, multidimensional female roles. Today, even after turning 70, she continues to act, not for fame, but because it is where she feels most alive. Every glance, every trembling hand, every pause in her performance is an echo of the quiet wounds she has carried throughout her life. Audiences around the world admire her, not merely because she is a legend, but because she never acted to become one. Meryl Streep performs to heal what cannot be spoken, both in her characters and in the hearts of those who watch her. In The Place Where Fame Shines Brightest, Meryl Streep quietly faced the deepest wounds, wounds that few ever noticed. She is the most honored woman in Oscar history, praised as the queen of modern acting. But behind that spotlight were years filled with silent struggles, moments when she felt lost, even within the very world she helped build. At times, she was seen as overly meticulous, so much so that some claimed she had lost her natural spontaneity. There were moments she was criticized for monopolizing female lead roles, casting a shadow so large that many talented actresses found it suffocating. These remarks, from legendary names like Katharine Hepburn, Susan Sarandon, and Sharon Stone, weren't just professional criticisms. They were quiet cuts into the soul of an artist who had always been sensitive to injustice. And yet, what made Meryl extraordinary wasn't how she responded, but how she chose silence. No rebuttals, no defenses. She walked through the noise with the quiet strength of someone who had endured much more than what the headlines ever told. She acted and lived as if rewriting what it means to be powerful, not by raising her voice, but by never losing herself. But perhaps the truest tragedy in Meryl Streep's life wasn't professional loneliness. It was the devastating loss of her first great love. At the dawn of her career, she met John Cazale, a man neither conventionally handsome nor widely famous, but someone with a soul so deep that she was immediately drawn in. They loved quietly, gently, and profoundly, just as artists often do, with few words, but with eyes that understood everything. But fate was merciless. He called his name with a cruel illness that made every breath a fragile miracle. Rather than chase roles or accolades, Meryl chose to stay through every day, every hour, every sleepless night. She moved into the hospital, turned down film offers, and stood by the man she loved, not as a star, but as a woman who would give everything not to lose what she loved most. John Cazale passed away in March 1978. And from that moment, a part of Meryl's heart fell silent forever, a space no character could ever fill again. Yet strangely, that pain made her stronger in her craft, as if every lingering scar allowed her to transform deeper, feel more holy, and reach farther into the hearts of her audience. 6 months later, Meryl met Don Gummer, a quiet sculptor and friend of her brother, who had helped her pack away John's belongings. It wasn't a passionate romance, but a quiet shelter. Don wasn't there to replace anyone. He was simply there, present, listening, a gentle presence in a world that had just taken too much. They married quietly in September 1978, and for over 4 decades he remained there, behind every performance, every award, every ovation. Don Gummer never sought red carpets or applause. He was the one who kept the kitchen warm when Meryl was away, who raised the children while she filmed for months, who built the home that allowed her to soar. He never needed to shine, because he was the ground beneath her feet. Meryl once said, "I couldn't have done any of it without Don." It wasn't a gesture of politeness. It was a lifetime of gratitude. If John Cazale taught her how to love deeply, Don Gummer gave her the peace to keep living, keep acting, and keep protecting her artist soul in a world too noisy for quiet hearts. They had 4 children together, each one an extension of her soul and of the art she carried within. Henry Wolfe Gummer, born in 1979, a musician who chose the quiet path of independence, far from the stage lights where he could create in peace. Mamie Gummer, born in 1983, an actress who once shared the screen with her mother, born for her expressive eyes and emotional presence. Grace Gummer, born in 1986, graceful and strong. She married musician Mark Ronson in 2021 and welcomed her first child in 2023. Louisa Jacobson Gummer, born in 1991, a rising star in theater and television known for the Gilded Age. In 2024, she quietly spoke her truth and embraced her identity with a mother beside her, who never needed an explanation, only love. At home, Meryl was not a global icon. She was simply a mother, a wife, a quiet listener who loved in the simplest ways. She always chose roles filmed close to home. She made sure to be present at every meal, every milestone. She didn't raise her children as Meryl Streep's kids, but as individuals, free to feel, to choose, and to grow up in love that needed no spotlight. And now, as those children build families of their own, Meryl has quietly stepped into a new role, a grandmother. She rarely speaks about it, but in the rare moments she does, her eyes light up with pride, as if love, art, and tenderness are being passed gently, silently, into a new generation. In a world where success so often demands sacrifice, she held on to both a towering career and a complete, grounded home. And perhaps that is her greatest legacy. Not the awards, not the fame, but the way she loved, the way she grieved, and the way she quietly kept going. I am the most overrated and most over. While many of her contemporaries have stepped away from the spotlight, Meryl Streep remains quietly, steadfastly, and with unwavering depth. She no longer accepts roles as frequently as before, but that doesn't mean she has left the world of cinema. For Meryl, acting has never been a job. It has always been her way of speaking to life itself, and only when a role truly touches her soul does she return to the screen, not for fame, but because her heart refuses to stay silent. In recent years, she appeared in Big Little Lies and Don't Look Up, performances that may have passed without fanfare, but left viewers breathless in the silence that followed. That emotional resonance no longer stems from dramatic crescendos, but from restraint, where even a glance can tell the story of a lifetime. She no longer appears frequently in front of the camera, seldom joins grand events, and keeps her private life guarded with gentle discretion. Yet in the rare moments when people do see her, in the soft glow of a backstage photo, a short, heartfelt speech, or the quiet gaze of a woman seated among the audience, the light within her still shines steady, warm, and undiminished. Meryl now lives more slowly, balancing creativity with daily life, where her roles take a respectful step back, making space for peaceful moments with her family. No longer just the legendary figure on screen, she returns to simply being herself. A woman who has loved deeply, lost deeply, transformed completely, and is still living quietly, gracefully, and with unmistakable dignity. Because for Meryl Streep, light does not come only from the stage. True light, at times, comes from the quiet she spent a lifetime protecting. Perhaps it is in that stillness where her legacy shines the most, not only measured in trophies, but in the quiet impact she has left on the hearts of generations of artists and audiences around the world. Her legacy is not only written in her accolades, 21 Oscar nominations, 3 wins, 32 Golden Globe nominations with 8 victories, but in how she redefined the meaning of artistry through authenticity, refinement, and quiet strength. Meryl never chased after fame or followed fleeting beauty standards. She chose roles that demanded truth, roles that made people hurt, understand, and love again. She was Sophie, carrying an unspeakable trauma. She was Miranda Priestley, powerful, cold, and profoundly alone. Meryl didn't just act, she became. For generations of actors, especially women, she broke boundaries without ever raising her voice. Young artists don't just look to her for inspiration, but for permission. To be complex, intense, and unapologetically imperfect. Viola Davis once said, "Meryl Streep opened the door for all of us, and that door remains open for every woman who wants to tell stories with honesty, courage, and without needing anyone's approval to be herself." Off-screen, Meryl has stayed true to the values that matter. She has quietly supported the arts, education, the environment, and women's rights. Never for show, always because she believes in doing what is right. In every performance, every frame, every trembling breath, she has given a part of herself. And in doing so, she became more than a performer. She became a mirror, a vessel, a voice for all that is most delicate and unspoken in the human heart. Her legacy is not just written in film, it lives within us. Those who once saw a piece of our pain, our hope, or our truth reflected through her. And now, as those children build families of their own, Meryl has quietly stepped into a new role, a grandmother. She rarely speaks about it, but in the rare moments she does, her eyes light up with pride, as if love, art, and tenderness are being passed gently, silently, into a new generation. In a world where success so often demands sacrifice, she held on to both, a towering career and a complete, grounded home. And perhaps that is her greatest legacy, not the awards, not the fame, but the way she loved, the way she grieved, and the way she quietly kept going. This is my only thing in the movie. It makes me so happy that you would love it. Meryl Streep never called herself a legend. She simply lived quietly and devoted herself wholeheartedly, as if acting was the only way she could listen to the world and respond with her heart. For over half a century, she never chased the spotlight or sought recognition, because in every glance, every gesture, and every moment of stillness, she proved that some things can only be felt through the soul. Her legacy lies not in the number of awards she's earned, but in the invisible yet irreplaceable impact she left behind, in the way she gently touched the pain of others through her characters, in the way she remained patient and kind, even while standing in the center of glory, in the presence of a woman who always put her art and her family first, never loud, never seeking attention. And that's why, when people speak of Meryl Streep, they don't just mention an icon of cinema, but a memory, a feeling, something that once made them pause, ache, or simply feel seen. We don't tell this story to glorify a monument, but to remind you that somewhere within every role she played, we may have seen a part of ourselves in the loneliness, the quiet hope, or the emotions we never dared to say aloud. Let us hold on to that with a line of emotion in the comments below this video, because sometimes all it takes is one memory to be remembered, for an artist to live on in the hearts of those who once quietly loved them. And if there is something that makes Meryl Streep's story genuinely heartbreaking, it's not the tragedy she endured, but the way she transformed them into art and carried them with a tenderness only someone who deeply loves this world could offer.